from Calexico to Nunavut, from the Aleutian Islands to the Newfoundland. This is the Fantasy Forecast with Grindberg and bigz and the captain. You are watching the Fantasy Forecast. This is our rookie extravaganza. And I am surrounded by Canadian. Well, I'm not surrounded. I'm outnumbered by Canadians. 2-1. I am 33% of the population. And we're here to bring you our rookie report halfway into the season. What are the rookies doing? Who's good? Who's not? Who is showing up? Who's disappeared? And we got Captain here from Fantasy Sports Advice Network, which you should be a subscriber to. And he's going to help us out. How you guys doing?
Hey,
are you
doing
cold?
Great. Happy I could finally get on with you guys. It's warm right now.
70 degrees and sunny today here in Northern California.
What's up, Cap?
How's it going?
Good, man. Why don't you tell everybody, obviously you're part of the network, but tell everybody kind of where they could find the majority of your stuff and, introduce yourself a bit.
Cool. Yeah, no, a lot of my stuff will be found on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network, as well as Captain FFAN on Instagram and Twitter. It's kind of dry right now as the season's getting going, but new rookie content, the 2025 draft is going to be coming up soon. So we're going to be talking about some rookies tonight, and then I'll be able to move forward and start talking about the rookies coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to the, analysis and a little sneak peek of the rookies in the incoming class, maybe in, after the season. We'll get you back on and you can kind of give us your analysis on kind of what you saw in the college season this year. So let's get into the rookies of this year. And we'll start with the quarterbacks here. And I'll kind of just do some rapid questions to both you and bigz. And we'll start with Caleb Williams. Currently, Caleb Williams is sitting at the quarterback 20. Played 8 games so far. He's got 264 attempts with 162 completions, 61% completion percentage, has thrown for about 1,600 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and has added a little bit on the ground, 174 yards. So start with you, Cap. What's your first initial thought on Caleb Williams and where you see him progressing from here?
Yeah, I've actually been pretty okay with how Caleb was. Like, I was pretty toned down on him as a rookie prospect to start with. He's doing a little bit better just because I always thought he was kind of reckless with how he carried the ball and how he kind of ran, and we saw that in his first couple of weeks. He's kind of doing what Mahomes does, holding the ball away from him. I was worried he was going to have like 8 fumbles this year. He's only got, I think, maybe 2 or 3 right now. So halfway through the season, he's not even halfway to that number. So I'm pretty happy about that. Obviously, with the people around him, we want him to be doing a bit more. But I think he's having a pretty standard rookie first season. He's under a lot of pressure right now with his O-line's not giving him too much help in comparison to really only Bo Nix and Jayden Daniels. He's seeing way more pressures than they are, but he's been doing just fine. I think he's got room to grow, and honestly, I can't be too upset with him. Obviously, he's not winning too many people leagues right now, but I don't think he's losing you too many weeks, though, to be fair either. So could be doing worse.
Absolutely. Bigz, what do you think? You want to hint because I think we're both on the same page with Captain here too. We weren't really super high, but go ahead.
No, I mean he's about exactly where we projected. Thought that it would take a little while for him to get his feet on the ground in the NFL. That's come to fruition. There are times that he looks good, times that he looks like he needs a lot of work. Same as in college. He's high ceiling, but he's a rookie.
Yeah, for sure. And another rookie that has been really impressive, and we're going to talk about Jayden Daniels because he's come on the scene and he's been everything we've hoped for. Currently, he is the QB5 in all of fantasy football. I'm going to bring up his stats right now. He's had 228 pass attempts. His completion percentage is over 71%, which is pretty close to top in the league in completion percentage. With outside of some guys like that haven't played a whole lot, but Jared Goff is the other guy that is just slightly ahead of Jayden Daniels, but his fantasy points per game is outstanding. Bigz, let's start with you. What's your first analysis on Jayden Daniels, and what's his potential? Obviously, maybe QB1 overall could be in his cards.
QB1 is tough. I mean, the top five, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of touchdown throws. We saw Dak with 36 last year. It takes a lot of rushing touchdowns. We see, Lamar Jackson and, leading in that category a lot of the time. And it's hard for him to break in. It's all around stats. And all five of those quarterbacks that are in the top five, pretty much there's some wiggle room in each of the stat categories, but they all compete with each other in those major categories: the touchdowns thrown, the touchdowns rushed, the passing yards, etc. Daniels is in the conversation in the top five. Obviously, like, he's top five in scoring right now, and he missed a game due to concussion. But it's something that we broke down, we analyzed in the offseason, and we said, look out for this guy. He's coming, and his historic numbers in his final year in college are not to be scoffed at. And it was a balance between the high NFL ceiling of Caleb Williams and the college production of Jayden Daniels. And we we jumped out ahead with Daniels in our rookie drafts and said, this is our flag plant. We know that we have to wait a little while on Caleb. It could happen still, but Jayden is going to be an immediate impact player, and he's made us all look really, really good.
Absolutely. Cap, do you want to, chime in on that? Are you on the same page here with us and Jayden Daniels? Because obviously you weren't as high on Caleb, so you must have been pretty high on somebody, and I would assume it was Jayden Daniels headed into this draft.
Yeah, I was super high on Jayden Daniels because I thought the one thing he's very, very different from Caleb Williams, even as a rookie prospect. Caleb Williams has these absolute just lines, like absolute frozen ropes for throws. Whereas Jayden Daniels, I think, really excels is lobbing those passes in that medium to deep where he can really get it up over the defender in the guy's hands. And as a runner, he was always super dangerous. To me, I saw as much potential in him as Lamar Jackson because I think he throws like head and shoulders better than Lamar Jackson. He's going to be what everyone's been waiting for Lamar Jackson to be. Obviously, only he's got an interception to touchdown ratio of 9 TDs, 2 interceptions, which is fine. He's run it in for 3. But at the same time, it would have been nice to see a little bit more than 9, but he was coming in on a bad team. So he's having to do a lot there, and he doesn't have the weapons some of these other rookies have come in with, but he's, I think, been faring great. PFF has him as QB3 on the season, so there's not much more we can ask from Jayden Daniels. He's carrying 2 of my leagues this year for me, so he's been awesome. Very happy.
I was going to say I wanted to see more rushing touchdowns from him than the 3, but I'm just kind of shaded by underdog.
Yeah, he is scrambling more than any other quarterback, to be fair, though. I think he's got
right.
I think that's 42 on the season. Next closest is Bo Nix at 31, Purdy at 29, if that says anything. So
yeah, what I'm talking about more is the inside the 5-yard line bootlegs and little rollouts and stuff. They're not calling those.
No,
granted, they have Brian Robinson, which is fine. That's fine too.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing the only place that I thought that he was coming up a little bit short of where we projected him was in rushing touchdowns, not rushes. He's right in line there. But other than that, no flaws.
Yeah. Well, these rookie quarterbacks are really coming in with some rushing upside, and another guy there, Maye, who's currently sitting at only the QB 28, but he's only played 5 games and is looking every bit of the role. He still has a pretty respectable completion percentage of 66% almost. He's thrown for over 770 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, but he brings a good aspect in his legs, 200 yards rushing and a touchdown already in 5 games. So bigz pegged him as the Josh Allen light this offseason, and now all these analysts are coming around with that comparison. Bigz hit the nail on the head with that one. Captain, what do you see about the Patriots here and their new weapon with the years to come here? Oh, muted.
Apologies there. I got my kid in the room, so when he's talking, I'm trying to keep it quiet for you. I was really excited about Drake Maye. Not like I still had him as the number 3 to Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams. I just thought people already had their expectations tempered a bit for him, coming from a slightly lesser known school, but like still very much looked like the Josh Allen light because of how aggressive he was at running and how strong his arm was. It was really strange to hear people talk about rookies this year being, oh, Drake Maye's the next Josh Allen, Jayden Daniels is the next Lamar, and then Caleb's looking like Mahomes. And it's just wild to be making comparisons, but there are styles that look right.
Yeah.
I think Drake Maye's looked fairly comfortable at times. Yeah, the completion percentage could be a lot better, but he easily has probably one of the worst wide receiver rooms in football right now, which is unfortunate because another rookie we're going to talk about later, Jalen Polk, I was really excited about, and he's been dropping balls a lot more than I thought. So that's been really tough to see for Drake Maye, but I'm happy he's finally got the start in there. And I think he's only getting more and more comfortable. It's my hope is that they do give him the honest chance, because we saw with Sam Howell last year. I thought Sam Howell had a very fine rookie year. You have a chance to go get Jayden Daniels. You're going to get back. So I just hope they give Drake Maye the chance, because I think he is going to be special. And I don't mind that he's thrown 4 interceptions. It's in the few games that he's had. It's not all of them are his fault, but I kind of like that these rookies are actually taking shots, because I'd rather see them make some good big time throws. Maybe they get picked, maybe they don't, but enough guys don't take those shots at all, and then they're not even on a team. So,
and a lot of it is in trying to get back into the game. He's trying to make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
I just part of me is like, imagine what this Drake Maye would look like on the Chicago Bears starting the whole season, rather than on the Patriots coming in 5-6 games in. And where would Drake Maye be now? I loved him as a freshman. Just watching him on camera as an 18-year-old, I was like, this dude's NFL legit right now. And it took a few years, but he finally got there, and he's showing it. And I think the Patriots were shrewd to not let him fall.
Yeah. Well, and PFF has the right stats for him too. Like, just quickly looking at what they have, a stat that they give for graded throws as big time throws. He actually has the highest one so far at 4.4. Jayden Daniels is at 4.2. Caleb at only 2.7, but he has more to work with, so he may not have to make as many. He's making smart throws, hopefully. So in the little bit he's had, PFF seems to be liking him a little bit. His grade isn't great, but opportunities there, potential looks good.
Yeah. Well, here's a shocker, and it shocked me because honestly, I didn't assess Bo Nix to be what he's doing right now. He's definitely impressing in a lot of stages right now. I don't know if it's too good to be true or not, but we're talking about Bo Nix, who is the QB 8 overall right now, which is a surprise to me. He's played 9 games. He's made 294 pass attempts. His completion percentage is not good at 62%, thrown for 1,700 yards. But where he made up is with his scrambling. He went for 16 scrambles, 187 yards, and a touchdown, making him a viable fantasy starter at this stage. Now, bigz, we had an off grade on Nix headed in here. Where do you custom that to?
I honestly can't tell you. He's quarterback 8 in scoring. He's quarterback 5 in rushing yards. So that has to be kind of like the lion's share of it. And he's 4th in rushing touchdowns. So like him on the ground is basically what's getting it done. He drops all the way down to 24th in passing touchdowns. So it's all coming from his legs. It's coming from legs and opportunity. Whether or not that's sustainable, we don't know. We watched Justin Fields do it. We watched Daniel Jones do it. So it looks like he's in a situation where real life quarterback, bad. Fantasy quarterback, top 10.
What's your thoughts on that, Cap?
So Bo Nix was another guy I was really low on at the start of the year. a lot of people were saying, he was very mature and a good decision maker. Whereas watching him in some of the high leverage games against Washington last year, I really thought he was the lesser of the two quarterbacks in those Washington-Oregon games.
Yep.
But he has been a pleasant surprise. I was real mad in one of my home leagues that he was the QB I got with the 12th overall pick because I badly needed a quarterback in that league, and everyone else went ahead of me. But he's been getting the job done with his legs, and people are kind of comparing him a little bit to what Justin Fields was early on. He's doing more with his legs, maybe scrambling a little bit. But in fairness, he has had more pass attempts than Caleb Williams. He's 1% higher on completion percentage and about 100 yards more. So he's been comparable to Caleb with his arms so far this year. Granted, that's in an extra game. So make of that what you will. But I really wasn't expecting him to be anywhere close to Caleb's numbers. I really thought he would have, I mean, he kind of does at 8 and 6 with a TD interception ratio, but he's looked better, a lot better than I was expecting him to. So part of it, I think, I don't know what the expectations are with this team. Denver's defense is a little bit better, so I think he's been fortunate not be chasing other teams in a lot of games like some teams have. But yeah, he's giving me some promise, and I'm pretty excited that I have him on one of my teams just because he was someone I really wasn't excited about. And I figured he'd just be another backup, but he is so far proving to be serviceable, which is nice.
There are three quarterbacks in the NFL right now with 8 total passing touchdowns. Bo Nix, Daniel Jones. Who's the other one, Mike?
So with 8 passing touchdowns, geez, is it Bryce Young maybe?
Patrick Mahomes. So, so that's, I mean, that's kind of the area that we're talking about here is where does Daniel Jones slot in? Where does Patrick Mahomes slot in? Something happened to Patrick Mahomes in the last couple of years that dropped him out of the top 5 talk. But yeah, I mean, they all have the potential to finish in the top 10. And so, and I feel like Bo Nix in Dynasty right now, if you can get him from some unsuspecting fellow or madam, lady, do it, because I think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback for a lot of years to come. And I still feel like people aren't understanding that yet.
Mm-hmm. And I think like a lot of it's the Justin Fields thing too, because he's playing similar. And look at Fields this year; he's lost his spot to Russ when I don't think he really deserved that. I'm one of the few probably Justin Fields believers. So seeing Bo Nix do this much with his legs, knowing that he has a pretty capable arm still, yeah, I'm absolutely tickled that I have him in one of my home leagues where I sold off my quarterbacks for wide receivers and tight end help because I needed it. And I was happy to be running whoever, like Danny Dimes at the QB. But yeah, drafting Bo Nix has been paying off really big for that team. So if you're competing, you can get him for nothing, I'm pretty sure still. Like, just unassuming. You can sneak up on people.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a good savvy call here. And you know what's a savvy call is heading over to the Fantasy Sports Advice Network and check out the website there if you're not already a subscriber to it. And let's hear all about it right.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.
Yeah, let's do it now. We could talk about Spencer Rattler, but let's not. Let's move on to the tight ends here. And one in particular that has stormed the scene, and it wasn't too much a surprise for many. Maybe it was a surprise that he was, the tight end 1 overall so far in this season. But Brock Bowers coming in hot, and let's talk about him there, Cap, first, and then I'll let bigz have his glory with his Raider after.
So... and especially in the last few years, Brock Bowers has been the easiest tight end call in recent years. I know people loved Kyle Pitts a few years ago, but no one was talking about Kyle Pitts as early as people were talking about Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers could have been the best tight end drafted last year had he wanted to go that much earlier. So the fact that this past year when he did finally go, this isn't surprising. Like, yes, he only has 2 touchdowns, but it's a dreadful offense. The fact that he has, like, goodness, when we talk about rookie tight ends, we're happy to get 600-700 yards at him. That's what it was for years. He already has almost 600 yards on the season, and we're halfway through. He is doing wonderful. I have him on quite a few teams. I sold the farm in a lot of leagues, so to be able to get inside the top 4 for a pick this year, and he was the guy I always wanted to get there, was pretty happy. So he's been a very easy call, and he's lighting it up. He's been everything we want. So happy.
Yep.
Add to that, bigz. We want to hear your opinion on what are the only broad spots of your team right now, other than the firing of some of their offensive personnel.
I really don't have a lot to add. From Captain's comment in college, he couldn't come out any earlier. He had to play 3 years in college, and he came out as soon as he was eligible. But yeah, it was in that freshman year in the national championship game that we saw him and went, he's the first tight end off the board whenever he comes out. We knew right away that he was going to be that good, and he ate my pizza. So I don't really need to add much more to that. I do want to talk, since it's not in the show sheet.
Yeah.
Though I did want to talk about Eric All, who was starting to kind of gain traction, and yesterday got hurt. In addition, we have Jatavian Sanders looking like, if the Panthers decide that they want to start scheming him into the offense more, he's looking just fine. And then I got a great touchdown yesterday from Theo Johnson in New York, which I thought was going to be a little bit more. I thought he was going to be a little bit more involved in the offense than he has been. But traditionally, it has taken tight ends 5 to 6 years to get in there. And a lot of these tight ends, it looks like it was only going to take them 5 or 6 games. So if you're out there and you've got tight end needs, you're looking to stream, start looking at Theo Johnson and Jatavian Sanders, because those 2 guys are legit already, and they're going to have their games.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to add into that too. Like, I wasn't on the show sheet to talk about some of these tight ends because, they didn't kind of emerge till this weekend, really. But Sanders was a great call there. And obviously Theo Johnson as well. We could talk about Sinnott, but, do you have anything to add to the tight end room there, Captain, before we move on to the wide receivers?
I mean, Theo Johnson should have been a surefire call. Anytime you get a Canadian playing down in warmer climates, it's going to happen, right? And he almost had a touchdown 2 weeks ago, too. He got tripped up at like the 3. So he's been coming on, and it's been great to see. He is a guy I didn't really look too much as a prospect. He was one like late dart throws, whatever. But Jatavian Sanders, I'll have to look back, but I'm pretty confident he was my second tight end in this class that I wanted, just because of how Texas schemed him. Like, Texas plays a wild, very fast offense, and so for him to keep up and get usage in that, I thought was a really good sign. I think some people were higher on Jaheim Bell, but I thought Sanders did it a lot better. So my only worry with him was, like you said, it takes a few years to come through. I figured Tommy Tremble would finally get his time in that offense, which it was looking at weeks he was. But the fact that Sanders is getting some work, it's really good. I have him on quite a few teams. Another sneaky guy too is AJ Barner, has had a few flashes in some games in Seattle. There's been some interesting rookies this year. It was a pretty quiet, I thought, room after there's Brock Bowers and then everyone else, but there's been some nice surprises for this rookie class. It's especially this year. It's been a weird position this year in fantasy, so I don't expect it to continue
after Brock, but
yeah. Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the cream of the crop here and the class of wide receivers. That's kind of been the talk of the town here. Malik Nabers coming in and storming the scene. Marvin Harrison Jr. having some spike games against some weak defenses. But let's talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. first, because he was the first wide receiver off the board, currently sitting at wide receiver 21. He's starting to develop that chemistry with Kyler Murray, but he's having some spike games. So, bigz, let's start with you. You weren't really that high on Marvin headed into this
That's
draft
not true.
class, like compared to Malik Nabers, compared to Lad McConkey, compared to Odunze. What's your analysis now on Marvin? Is it still the same?
Yeah, still the same. He's an excellent X receiver. He's going to function very well in an offense where he's doing a lot of outside routes, a lot of like deep crossers, things like that. The guy, like, he's a legit wide receiver. He's got legit hands, and we've seen that. We've seen that from some of his spike games that he's had this year. I wasn't out on him. I was just looking at analytics and pointing out that there were some analytic models that had some other wide receivers higher than Marvin Harrison Jr., which surprised me. And that's all that I was saying, was that I was surprised because he's the consensus number one. Some people say he's the best player in the entire NFL draft. And I said, if you look a little bit deeper into the numbers, you got some wide receivers out there who are doing a lot more with the ball, doing more without the ball in terms of their route running abilities and things like that. And I said, hedge your bets, because it could just be a scheme thing, and he does have the same talent that everybody else does. But at Ohio State, he was asked to run a route, make a contested catch, and go down. So he didn't have the benefit of getting boosted in models by yards after catch or missed tackles forced or things like that, because a lot of times he was seeing double teams and he wasn't able to escape those right away. Whereas you have other receivers that were, catching the ball in open space and then getting loose with it. So that was the only thing, was that I never said that Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't as that talented, but I always had Malik as my number one anyway.
All right. Well, let's talk about Malik Nabers in captain, because he stormed the league. He's missed a couple games there. One at least with a concussion. So his outlook probably would be even better than what it is right now. Currently, he is sitting at the wide receiver 13, just outside the top 12, which pretty impressive. His target share, all this stuff. So what about Malik?
Yeah, Malik was great. So Malik, for me, he was the number 3 out of the wide receiver group for me, just because I had a huge crush on Odunze, and Marvin Harrison just saw a double team rate that was never seen before in college. It was like double what anyone else was seeing. So it made him harder to gauge, but I thought it just made him almost QB proof. Wherever he'd go, he'd find some success. But Malik Nabers has been great, and a lot of people were sad he went to the Giants. I was okay with it, because Danny Dimes is reckless as hell, and he's happy to just throw that ball out there. So he was going to get tons of opportunities, and all he needs is a chance. That's all he needs. He can absolutely play better than most of all the DBs in college. There's going to be a good amount in the NFL that he can play better than already as well. And so, yeah, he's been amazing, especially in New York. He's played 2 games less than these other guys, but he's still right there in yards. He's only got 3 touchdowns for now, but for rookies, pickers can't be choosers almost with tight end numbers. But he's been great. And spoiler alert for the rest of this, when we're talking about the 5 rookies that have over 400 yards so far, 4 of the 5 have played out wide on over 75% of the routes run. So it was a big X receiver class this year, which was a drastic change from the plethora of slot receivers we had the last few years.
Yeah, for sure. Malik Nabers, we don't need to add more to that, bigz. Let's move on to Odunze, and I'll get you some, your insight there. Caleb Williams, QB 20, connected with this young wide receiver. They brought in Keenan Allen. I mentioned it on the Pulse last week that he's like a stock down, as in like kind of a guy that you kind of want to circle as buying right now. Had a good game this week in the right matchup, but he's still a rookie, and I think he's going to come on in the latter half of this season when that offensive line can maybe get some things figured out. So, bigz, what's your thought on Rome, and what's your advice for fantasy managers headed into the latter half of the season with him?
Well, being a Pac-12 guy, I've been watching Odunze for a long time, and that's one of the reasons I was so high on Jalen McMillan as well, was because I got to watch them a lot on the West Coast in late night games on Saturdays. And I still think it's there, but just like I said, during the summer, he's in a very crowded room, and Caleb Williams hasn't reached his potential yet. So to expect Odunze to be the guy that he was in Washington would kind of be a fool's errand. There's one thing that we start to lose sight of when really, really high talent, high quality wide receivers come into the NFL. And that's the fact that these are 20, 21, 22-year-old kids who are not physically developed. They've been facing college defenses, which sometimes a cornerback 3 is not even as good as some of the cornerbacks in the XFL. What they're seeing at the NFL level is guys who are maybe just as fast as they are, but more importantly, they have 4, 5, 6, 8 years of man muscle, which we know, euphemisms notwithstanding, we know that grown men strength is a little bit different than, underdeveloped strength. And then on top of that, you have guys who have been in the league for 5, 6, 7 years who have hundreds and hundreds of more reps in coverage and in systems, and they're covering these guys. So for somebody to make a quick leap is very, very difficult. They have to start bodying guys who are grown-ass men when they're not. They have to start out thinking guys who have that experience and they have the brain, and they don't yet. So that's why you see so few wide receivers that aren't in that first round have 1,000-yard years. So I didn't see it coming from Odunze. He is right on track with what I thought he was going to do. Same with Caleb Williams. I think they're going to grow together, and it's not out of the question for in 3 or 4 years, Odunze to be in the top 4 wide receiver conversation and Caleb Williams to be in the top 5 quarterback conversation. It's just not yet.
I 100% agree with that. What about you, Cap?
Yeah, Odunze is a buy. I'm trying to get him from anyone and everyone that's willing to listen. I'm sending often first-round picks plus on any team I'm competing in for that reason. To me, he was like an easy top 3 prospect, but in the draft this year, it sucked going to Chicago in such a full wide receiver room because you have a super safe guy in Keenan Allen, just similar like a Mike Evans, sure-handed, 1,000 yards every year, like death taxes and 1,000 yards for that guy. Then you have guys like DJ Moore, really dangerous out of the slot, great hands, and it looked like Caleb, I guess, he had 3 guys to choose from. Someone's going to be on the outside. So the fact that Odunze is even like close to like 400 yards similar to these other guys is a little bit of a surprise. I didn't think he'd be as involved. Keenan Allen's been hurt a little bit, but he's someone I'm trying to buy as cheap as I can. And I'm willing to spend late first on him just because we know what he can be. I think he will be that. Like you say, he's going to grow with Caleb, and growing like together, it's going to be great. Like we're seeing Burrow and Chase do it. Like these guys, it's the next pair. These guys are going to do great things in a few years.
Agreed. All right. Yeah, you guys are pretty much right on target with that. Let's move on to Brian Thomas Jr., who is emerging as the number 1 wide receiver right now in this rookie class based off of points per game. Obviously, with Nabers missing a game, that's skewed that. But Brian Thomas Jr. coming in and earning targets, which, I didn't see it coming because obviously Nabers is that guy that was earning those targets in LSU. But you can't downplay Brian Thomas and what he's doing right now in that Jaguars offense. Now without Christian Kirk for the rest of the year, wheels up for Brian Thomas Jr. And I just think he's emerging. Biggs, let's get your shots on him.
I mean, there's nothing that we can say about Brian Thomas Jr. that we haven't said before. My only black mark, I don't know how to say it. My only knock on Brian Thomas Jr. Was it appeared to me through watching film that he tended to catch close to his body and not use his hands out in space to catch the ball as a receiver. That has resulted in a couple drops in the end zone. He could even be higher than he is now. But volume is king in fantasy, and he's getting the volume we knew that he was a great prospect coming out of LSU. The things that he and Malik Nabers did for Jayden Daniels last year were historic, and we knew that could continue in the NFL. So that's coming to fruition. So, love it for Schultze.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything to add to Brian Thomas Jr., Cap?
No, he never wavered from being the number 4 wide receiver for me, even despite the spot, because I figured if the Jags can make Christian Kirk and Zay Jones look serviceable, this kid was going to be great. I didn't expect him to do this. I didn't expect him to have 5 touchdowns already. I kind of figured he'd be maybe in year 1 like a poor man's Jalen Waddle, like he's going to give you like those 3 catches, 110 yards, and a touchdown game, just big, because they're using him as an X receiver. He stretches the field incredibly well. And apparently Trevor Lawrence can throw pretty balls to him just like Jayden Daniels did. So it's been working great. I'm curious to see how it looks now with Christian Kirk out, because I think he's already been getting the better looks than Kirky has. So I hope it continues for him, because I felt so safe drafting him. I drafted him right after Brock Bowers in a couple leagues. I had multiple picks, so it was 4 and 5. He's been as advertised, and the biggest knock on him for me was T-Law, whether he was going to progress forward. We haven't seen it. We're getting it together now, but he's still young. We'll figure it out.
Oh, we've seen it.
Pairings.
The analytics show what Trevor Lawrence has been doing. He's just been let down by his receivers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get a bright spot here. Another one, and that's Ladd McConkey. He just came out the last couple of games, and he's been.
That's how much the show sheet says.
I'm talking about Ladd McConkey now. Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to talk about McConkey before Worthy. Okay. Because he hasn't played his full slate of games yet, and McConkey has been a bright spot here. And 2 games ago, came on the scene, had 2 touchdowns in that game. He's emerging now. So, bigz, talk about your lad.
Hashtag dads for lad. Basically, I just want to clap back on all the people that made fun of me when I posted that I drafted Ladd McConkey over Odunze, and I wasn't going to apologize for it, because I still don't apologize for it. And Ladd McConkey is wide receiver 19 in fantasy right now, and Odunze is wide receiver 59. So there's your clap back, guys.
Captain, talk about Ladd.
Yeah, Ladd's been great. He came into a dream situation where any wide receiver with talent vacated the Chargers for some strange. It was a strange offseason for everything. So for him to come in, this was the recipe that made Justin Jefferson special when he was a rookie. To come into a top 2 slot easily is huge. And he's had, I think there's only 1 game he hasn't had at least 6 targets on. So he's been looked at recently. He's really coming out. Like he was dangerous in Georgia. We liked him. Obviously, Herbert likes him. So I just hope he stays on the field and keeps doing what he's doing. He's been balling out. He was, I think, wide receiver 5 for a lot of people. I think the upside of Worthy, once we talk about him, was exciting. But I think Ladd was guaranteed. Like he had Quentin Johnson. I don't think say anything special. I think I don't know. Maybe he'll be a 2 on a couple teams in the league, but Ladd's special. He's showing it. Herbie knows now. It's it's going to be good things from here going forward.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, let's talk about Xavier Worthy then, their captain. He's come on to the scene here. He's had his opportunities right out of the gate with the Marquise Brown injury. We thought he would be, taking some time to get into this lineup, and now Rashee Rice down, and they bring in Hopkins, and he's becoming a threat now. But Xavier Worthy, what's your first initial thoughts on him?
Yeah, the usage has been odd because he really hasn't been dominating the snap share there, despite the injuries since the start of the season. Because everyone thought it would be basically he'd be doing what Brian Thomas has been doing, like stretch the field, make exciting catches. Yeah, like putting up like 3-4 catches over 100 yards, maybe a touchdown. But I think this is part of the fear that has been in the past Texas wide receivers. They're usually, it's so fast. There's so many guys. I don't think they're getting honest defensive looks in college. There was enough there. I thought he tracked the ball well. He could actually use that speed. And a big part of it is just the Chiefs' offense hasn't looked great, I'd say, the last 2 years now. And so I think in our heads, we're just programmed to think it's going to be exciting. But Mahomes hasn't been what Mahomes has been in the past. And I think that's a big part of it. But just the usage is odd. I don't think he's played more than 80% of the snaps in any of his games. Like he's just not getting the work for some reason. And who knows why that is. But right now it's not looking great. You can hope to improve. Maybe you can buy him cheap from someone that invested heavily in him. Because I really can't think of what to make with him. I'm not buying him, but if I have him, I'm not selling him because I don't think I'm going to get anything for him.
Yeah, I think it's just a work in progress with these rookie wide receivers for the Chiefs. I mean, it's not often that like a guy like Rashee Rice can emerge like the way he did in a complex offense that they run in Kansas City. But yeah, I think they know not to. They don't want to trust their wide receivers and young. They want to get them accustomed to the gameplay, and I thought they'd get them more into game action after the bye, which they have. But bringing in DeAndre Hopkins is obviously gonna hinder some of the playing time he's going to get as well. So Biggs, what else do you got to say about Worthy?
I mean, I said at the beginning of the season he was going to be great in best ball, but not necessarily in like weekly fantasy or managed fantasy. Yeah, it's kind of the way that it's been, and I think the Chiefs know that. That's why they went out and got Nuke Hopkins instead of making Worthy the guy after the injuries. So. They also had, Mecole Hardman and Juju Smith-Schuster in the building. So he had an opportunity to kind of galvanize that wide receiver core, but that's not his game. So he is another guy that he is what we thought he was. And some of us benefit from that in certain situations, and some of us got hurt by overdrafting him.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, you hit it right there. He's a big play threat that can open up the field and he'll service there, but I can't see him being a huge target earner in that offense, not anytime soon anyway. Let's move on to I'll let you guys pick one more wide receiver that you guys want to talk about before we head into the running back. So on that list, I'll start with you, Captain. Is there a guy you want to talk about out of these last wide receivers here that are starting to have some playing time?
It's tough because part of me wants to talk about Jalen Coker more, but I just didn't watch enough film on him as a rookie prospect, and I honestly don't know what's happening with Carolina right now. So it's gonna be Keon Coleman just because he was someone I think I wasn't super high on him. I just thought everyone else was way too low on him as a rookie prospect because I'm like, this is a work in progress guy. And similar thing, opportunity. We had a lot of wide receivers walk into really good opportunity roles this year. And so for him, it's who you're competing against in Buffalo. And Josh Allen, similar to Danny Dimes, he's going to huck it. Like, he didn't care. He'd throw like 3 interceptions a game last year, and he's like, so what? And it's like, win the game, put up 40 points. He's going to make nice chances. And Keon Coleman, not being able to separate, but a contested catch, like absolute like savant. Like, that's Josh Allen's not scared to throw that ball to him. And so that was, I thought, the only good place Keon Coleman could go. And he's been looking great. He's getting the work. And apparently he's the veteran. He's been helping Murray Cooper tell him where to go on routes. So.
Do you have any? Yeah, I wasn't a huge high guy on Keon Coleman. He's dropped some passes there. I mean, we saw that last game, but he's got that upside with connected to Josh Allen, like you mentioned. Biggs, you want to add anything to Keon there?
Well, I was kind of opposite of Captain. I wasn't very high on him, but I was much lower than other people. So yeah, that's there you have it.
Yeah. I got an idea. I got a premonition that I know who you're going to be talking about as your last wide receiver, but I'll let you. Okay, talk about it.
Well, I was going to talk about Jalen Coker also, but I couldn't figure out how because I really like him. I'm not going to talk about one guy. I'm going to talk about 3. And on this show sheet, the way that the pages are separated, it's the 3 who are at the very bottom of this list, and that's Luke McCaffrey, Jalen McMillan, and Javon Baker. I think all 3 of those guys are super, super talented, And for redraft, you can just forget about him, as with most of the guys on this list. But for dynasty leagues, I feel like right now is a super good time to go grab Luke McCaffrey, Jalen McMillan, and Javon Baker, especially Jalen McMillan, because his lack of performance, given his opportunity, plus the fact that he's missing this week's Monday Night Football game that he missed last night while we're watching it right now. He's going to have a lot of people that had inserted him into their lineups or picked him up off waivers that wanted good things for him, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen in the short term. So take advantage of the fact that people are giving up on him. Luke McCaffrey has had some opportunities. He's running some routes. He's not getting any looks. And I said before the season that the guy was making a transition from quarterback to wide receiver. He hasn't been playing wide receiver for as long as these other guys have. So his talent is through the roof, but it's going to take him a little bit of time to acclimate to the NFL game. That's happening. Javon Baker is another guy who is just supremely talented, but he's not getting the opportunity that he should. He's in a crowded wide receiver room, even though that crowd is mediocrity. He's gone through a quarterback transition already. He's dealt with injuries. He's got Jalen Polk, who has the draft capital over him. There are myriad reasons why Javon Baker isn't playing up to his potential. And we see it all the time in the NFL where second-year wide receivers, third-year wide receivers completely break out. And if there are any three candidates for that list or on that list, those top 19, to have breakouts in the next 2 years, it's those three guys, McCaffrey, McMillan, and Baker.
There you have it.
My only worry with Baker is he's not seeing any snaps right now, despite Jalen Polk dropping balls and a room of mediocrity. And that's a concern. And thinking of this show, I had a question for you guys before we continue.
I'll trade you for him. I'll give you a fifth-round pick for him.
Yeah. How many wide receivers that don't find themselves playing at all in their first year? Like hardly at all, because that's Javon Baker right now. Because he's a guy like you. I loved him as a prospect. I'm like, oh my gosh, like Drake Maye with Jalen Polk and Baker. I'm excited for this offense in a few years. But he's getting like almost no snaps. And so I can't think of another wide receiver that didn't get snaps year one as a rookie, emerging in years 2 and 3, just because usually like Jalen McMillan is that type. He's getting the work as guys go down. He's at times the third wide receiver. He's a guy that could break out years 2, 3. I think he's already doing great, but that's my only concern with Javon Baker now is I can't think of another wide receiver who was a ghost year one and then even emerged at all years 2, 3.
Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, to a certain extent, Keyshawn Boutte, Tyler Lockett. There are quite a few guys. Nico Collins is another one. Nico
Collins was still he was wide receiver 3 for the Texans as a rookie.
He was playing, but he wasn't producing.
Sure.
And we still have half the season to go. So there still is that opportunity for him to get out there. I understand what you're saying, and yes, the guys who are under 400 yards, it's one of the big knocks in the last couple of years against Sky Moore. There are a couple other guys who were like they had a lot of hype in their rookie and second years, but in that rookie season they managed fewer than 400 yards, and so those charts start coming out with the wide receivers as rookies that go for less than 400 yards. What is their percentage of making it into the top 24 as a wide receiver at some point in fantasy? And it's like pretty close to 0. But that doesn't mean that they're not rosterable. That doesn't mean that they're not feasible. And that doesn't mean that they don't help your team at some point.
Right.
And that's kind of my point is that those are 3 guys that we're looking at that are going to be disappointing to fantasy managers, but it would be a perfect time to go out and grab them because their talent is going to take them over guys like Tez Walker, Roman Wilson, that are Ricky Pearsall that are on this list already.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the running backs here, guys. And there's not a lot of action that happened this year. You know, it's not a long list of guys that are getting significant playing time, and some head scratchers as far as the people that are getting a lot of the run here. We got a lot of handcuffs in this range, especially in the top end. Jonathan Brooks is coming back, and he had that ACL injury, so we're optimistic to see what he can bring to the table. But I'm not expecting much until at least 2 or 3 games in after he tests that leg out. But let's talk about a couple guys, and maybe we'll go with, the one that surprised me the most. I'm going to start with Bucky Irving because he's been the most, he's been the best out of all these guys with opportunity right now. Currently was sitting at the RB 30 headed into tonight's action. Looks like Rachaad White is starting to, gain his role back in that offense. But Bucky's carved himself out a role. So, bigz, I'll start with you. Initial thoughts on Bucky, and do you see his role expanding or staying the same as the season progresses?
Well, I see it as the same, and what I really like is the fact that they use him on a lot of internal running plays because of his ability to move in small spaces, and he is the one running back in this class that has completely outplayed his combine narrative. He had a really, really bad combine and completely fell down most fantasy guys' lists as far as what his production, potential could be. But I mean, this is a list of 10 guys that we're looking at right here, where it's handcuff, starter. And most of them they're on our benches, and we're just waiting. We're just waiting for James Conner to get hurt. We're just waiting for Kyron Williams to get hurt. We're just waiting for Devon Achane or Raheem Mostert to get hurt. Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall. Like, as soon as somebody pulls a Devin Singletary, the rest of these guys can turn into Tyrone Tracy. But on the Bucky Irving point, Bucky Irving is, he's using his speed in small spaces, and I think they know that that's going to be Bucky Irving going forward. It's a nice two-headed monster to have in Tampa Bay, and they know what they have with Rachaad White. They need to give him opportunity to run, and he's always been among the league losers in yards before contact. He gets the ball, and immediately he's got people on him. So what the Buccaneers have been trying to do lately is get him out into space, give him more passing downs, give him more like little dump off, and give Bucky Irving the between the tackles running. And I think it's helped the Buccaneers, and it's also helped Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. So I see more of that coming.
So, Captain, my question for you then is, were you a Bucky Irving guy headed in after the combine? I didn't like his metrics headed in. But now it looks like he's carved himself.
Yeah, no, he was a guy I was, I think, more down on than consensus. I had him only a little bit higher than his fellow Pac-12 guy and Dylan Johnson as well, because there wasn't much like bigz made point of him running one side. He's looked way better running now than I thought he did in college.
I had Dylan Johnson higher.
Games. Yeah, just because I thought Dylan Johnson could do a little bit better outside, whereas I thought Bucky he'd overthink it. He'd try to do too much with it. But the one thing that's been as advertised is his hands. He's still catching great balls. He's caught 22 of 23 targets already. So for a rookie to be catching 40 balls, especially in a two-headed monster backfield, it's exciting to see.
And Rachaad White catches a lot of balls too, right? Sorry to interrupt, but like he catches a ton of balls as well. So the fact that Bucky could still carve himself out a role there is impressive too.
Oh, definitely. And my fear for Bucky at the start of the year too, going to Tampa, and I'm like, these guys drafted Rachaad White, they drafted Sean Tucker, now they got Bucky Irving. There's too many young guys that at times can look really good and flash, like we saw with Sean Tucker a few weeks ago. But last year with Rachaad White, it was volume. So I'm like, you're going to split that volume up. I don't know how these guys are going to differentiate themselves. So Bucky has surprised me. I have absolutely no shares of him just because I was way lower than a lot of people were. But he's looked fine, like over 5 yards a carry, 22 catches. Like he's looked great. He's been very, very good on in a RB room I wasn't expecting it to be.
Agreed. So talk about Trey Benson, Blake Corum, Jaylen Wright. I mean, these guys are a snap away from, getting some relevant playing time due to an injury, but they haven't been able to get into game action because some of these guys ahead of them are workhorse backs like Kyron Williams, it seems, and James Conner, and then the two-headed backfield with Achan and Mostert. So unless you guys want to pipe in on those guys, I think there's a storyline here with Tyrone Tracy that, a guy that's coming in and completely taken over that backfield in New York. And what's his upside now? Is he going to be a guy that could continue next year in that role because of how little his draft capital is? I don't know. Is that something that we're worried about? I'll start with you, Biggs.
I'm not worried about Tyrone Tracy at all. I mean, you have a guy like Rachaad White is a perfect example where as a rookie, he didn't do a whole lot. And then there was an opportunity for him, and he comes out as a second-year running back and completely breaks out. Whereas Dameon Pierce did the absolute opposite. He got an opportunity as a rookie, flashed, and then kind of fell back based on – but he didn't necessarily go out there and win that job. Tyrone Tracy is putting together the rookie season that he needs to for New York to rely on him because of the things that he does with the ball. He has – more tools in his toolbox than Dameon Pierce did. Very similar to Rachaad White. He can run between the tackles, and he's an excellent pass catcher. Trey Benson is actually getting a lot more carries than I thought he was going to, and I see the usage rates of Trey Benson, Jaylen Wright, and Braylon Allen as very similar to each other. I'd like to see more of that for Blake Corum and like Kamani Vidal. But I think moving forward, it's about what we can expect from Jonathan Brooks at this point, too. He's going to have a few opportunities a game, maybe break a run or two, maybe vulture a touchdown, and give us that little kernel of hope. But that's about all that we can expect from them without and you said something about snap, and I immediately thought they're a snap. You said they're a snap away, and I thought a snapped femur. So they're a snapped femur away from getting that opportunity. So they're still in handcuff territory, which week 8 is fine. 10, 11, 12, that might be a little bit easier for them to get into the game.
Yeah. What about a guy that's been snatching some important goal line carries from James Cook, and Ray Davis is emerging here as well, and he's become a guy that is like flex worthy at times, especially when those bye weeks are coming into play. So, Captain, what about you? What are your thoughts on Ray Davis? He's carved himself out a role. It looks like he's going to be able to continue with that moving forward, and he could even get a bigger piece of that pie if when the snow starts hitting the ground there in Buffalo.
Yeah, no, Ray Davis, I really honestly think he's doing kind of what I was expecting of him. Just because I was someone who was lower on James Cook, just because I think he can't run between the tackles to save his life. And he's small. And Ray Davis, I wasn't sure if he was going to be the right guy in Buffalo, just because he was really good in Kentucky. Really, really good. I just didn't think he was that bully at the goal line that some of these other, like Audric Estime, Braylon Allen, like there was some beefy, mean, fast dudes in this class that I thought would have been a better fit. And so when Ray Davis went there, I was like, they might make it like a 1-2, like just rotate these guys in and out. And we're starting to see him play more, and he's been good. For Dynasty, like the only part of the knock was his age, because he was coming out at 25. So it's like, cool, run him for 3 years. Hopefully you win something, but it does hurt his value. But for all the injuries we've had this year, he's been, I'd say, almost a bit of a surprise. He has.
I think the major difference with age is that when a guy has been in college football for 6 years, they do have some time to learn pass blocking schemes and things like that, things that will keep them on the field in the NFL game. And when you have a guy, and it's funny that you said Blake Corum, Audric Estime, and Braylon Allen, those were 3-year guys. Those are guys that were still super, super young and weren't asked to do a whole lot of that. So Ray Davis, when he was in college, he has that benefit of being 25, because when he was in college, he did everything. So it's a little bit easier for NFL coaches to put him out on the field because they trust him, whereas that trust has to be earned by those younger guys. So I think that's why in Dynasty we get scared away from age, because typically a guy won't have to do that stuff if he comes in and he immediately becomes the RB1 in the system. And I think that's what we're seeing from Tyrone Tracy. He's getting his opportunity to show that he is that guy. And, you know, he was an older guy too. So the jury's not out on Braylon Allen, Blake Corum, and Audric Estime. They're good.
Oh yeah.
We're just waiting on that opportunity. They need to learn a little bit. And they'll be just fine. The days of the Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, guy gets drafted and immediately handed the RB1 job, I think those are gone.
Yeah, well, it's rare. Like it's actually nice to see with Ken Walker this year, because looking at all these guys in this class, like the Corums, the Braylon Allens, and things, like I thought they were nice pieces, but I thought Charbonnet was a bit more complete than some of these guys were coming out, and for him to just be a backup, I'm like, that's all these guys will be. They're very good backups, very valuable handcuffs to have when they do play. It's crazy to me how much opportunity some of these guys, especially Braylon Allen, when he's behind a Breece Hall and he's catching balls. Like I think he's got like 17, he's got like almost 20 targets, I think, on the season. Not what I was expecting from Braylon Allen. So this year has been a big surprise for the class, because if anything, I thought Will Shipley would be getting more usage, because DeAndre Swift last year in Philly, they were still rotating everyone in, and this year they want nothing to do with Gainwell or anyone else. So it's Barkley's show. So that was a complete turnaround for what I was expecting. But
love Will Shipley. My heart lifted so high when I heard him on Red Zone the other day, a couple weeks ago. I was like, yes. But yeah, then he went back to doing nothing.
Yeah. Well, I think Marshawn Lloyd is gonna maybe get some opportunities coming here soon, because Jacobs hasn't been what Aaron Jones was in Green Bay. So yeah, Marshawn Lloyd, when he starts getting his work, I'm excited for that. Go get him now.
Yeah, and that's the thing about these rookie running backs. A lot of the time, the second half of year one is when they start to get their steam on, and hopefully we could start seeing some of these guys carve out some roles, like we saw Trey Benson, this week. He got in the end zone there. James Conner, was off the sidelines for a little bit of the game with an undisclosed injury. So that could be a little bit of the norm now heading in here, with these running backs starting to get banged up in the home stretch here. So we might see some more of these rookies integrated into the action here, especially in the running back room. So, wow, hour in, we covered a decent amount here. Do you have anything else to add, guys, at all?
No, there's a few more guys, just honorable mentions to Jalen Wright, Garendo, Jordan Whittington. They've had their times. They've looked fine. So definitely peek through the rookies on Sleeper lets you pick them out. Have a look at the rookies on the waiver wire, especially end of season, so you can hold on to them all off season.
Yeah, no kidding.
I want to shout out Kevon Cansey, who I targeted very highly in rookie in IDPs, and he I thought he was super, super good, and he had two interceptions yesterday. So
sweet. All right, Captain, tell everybody where they can find you and all your stuff.
Yep, they can find me at Captain FFAN on both Twitter, Instagram, and content coming soon for rookies here in the next month or two for Fantasy Sports Advice Network app.
Sweet, man, and we're looking forward to catching all that action, and we'll definitely have you again on the show, in the next little while to talk some ball. Bigz, got anything else before we head out the show here, buddy?
No, I just can't wait to hang out with Captain in Ohio again next year.
Yeah, kidding. What a blast that was. Oh God, it was a good time. So thanks, Captain, for joining us again on the rookie spotlight here on the report for halfway mid-season, and from all of us on the Fantasy Football Advice Network, powered by the Fantasy Sports Advice and the Fantasy Forecast. You've been here with Grindberg and Bigz and Captain.
Take off, you hosers.
And we hope you win.
We hope you win.
We hope you win. Peace out.
Win.